Alrighty. Hello there, Mr. Bond. Welcome back.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So, yesterday you came in for the exam,
Mm-hmm.
and we went through your history that you filled out all the paperwork for, and I gave you a brief explanation of what we'd be doing today.
Yeah.
So, we're going to start off by, I'm just going to go through with you a brief kind of synopsis of what we did the first day. So, your case, you're a computer programmer, you spend a lot of time at your computer typing for most of the day, work 40-hour weeks, you've got, bilateral neck pain throughout, and numbness and tingling in your right hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you said that was with, I believe, a VAS of 4 out of 10. Like,
yeah, it's moderate.
Remember when I had you do the scale from 4 to 10? So pretty moderate, and it bugs you for most of the day. Nothing really relieves it, and it's worse when you work, right? So
yeah.
I think it's pretty obvious like where it's coming from. So one of the things I'm going to be talking with you more about later on is posture and ergonomics, which is really important in someone's field like yours. And I know you've tried some of those things. Some of the more obvious, like the way you set up your desk and stuff, but I think we can go a little deeper and really refine some of your postures and really relieve some of the stresses on your neck and your neurology.
Okay.
So I think that this is definitely something that could get worse and worse if we don't treat it. So I'm going to go over with you, we took x-rays as well yesterday, so I'm going to show you those today. We're going to have a look, and I'll explain how basically those symptoms that you're having can be shown, like how it's being led to that from the x-ray and from the exam findings that we did. So, and I know this is having a great deal of effect upon your day-to-day life, so definitely something we take very seriously, and we want to get it fixed. So we're going to move on to the review of all your exam findings.
Okay, sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. So, one of the main exams that we did was the orthopedic section. So that was when I was like pressing on your head in various positions and recreating those symptoms. Remember, it felt a little, you got them like right away when I did that. So one of the things that's indicative of is IVF stenosis, which on your x-rays you did have that, which is those, remember when we did the oblique x-ray view? That was when we were looking at those IVFs since they're aligned kind of 4 to 5 degrees. And so what we found there was that the recreation of that symptom was coming from when we put more pressure on your intervertebral foramina. So basically like little holes that along the spine come out. So I've got this little handout for you that you'll get to keep today. And essentially, so out of each of these spinal levels, there's a nerve root that comes out kind of along the side, and then they innervate all sorts of different things. So, for example, your cervical plexus innervates, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your sinuses, everything. Your thoracics, you're getting into like your lung and your heart, and etc. as you go down the lumbars all the way down to the intestines.
Yep.
So essentially each organ is innervated by a certain spinal level, and those nerve roots also provide sensory feedback from your skin essentially. And so that numbness feeling you're feeling is basically a result of an impingement and fixation and subluxation in your cervical spine and your like upper thoracics as well. So kind of just right in there, and so that's going to be the main location we're going to be focusing on. And so on your x-ray findings, I don't have them pulled up here for you right now, but assuming that I did, I would show you that you have some signs of degeneration. You're, I believe 35? And so you have a little bit more degeneration than I would expect from someone your age, but I would say with your line of work, that's not too surprising really, because when you're at the computer, you really put a lot of stress. Each inch forward that your head carries puts another 10 pounds of force onto the joints of your neck, which really adds up quick, especially when we start getting way out here on our cell phones and stuff. So
Exactly.
I know how that goes. So another thing of note on the X-ray would be, a loss of curvature. Ideally, we want to have a nice lordotic, is what we call it, curve. So basically like this in the neck. And so on that, there's definitely a significant amount of loss there. And a little bit of hyperkyphosis, so you're a little more kyphotic in your, you bend a little forward in your thoracics, and then you don't bend as far back in the cervicals. It's more of a hunched posture. And that's something that also puts a lot of stress on the joints and impinges the nerves as well. So that's certainly something we're going to be looking at. In terms of, we did, remember when I was checking the lengths of your feet? So that has to do with some neurological feedback, and so we were positive for some cervical syndrome, which basically allows us to isolate, where the symptoms are coming from, or like where the subluxation is rather. And so subluxation is, just to give you a brief overview again, I know I mentioned it yesterday when I talked with you a little bit after the exam, but what that basically is it's not a dislocation by any means, but a slight misalignment, essentially, to put it simply.
Okay.
And these misalignments can put pressure and impinge nerves in a variety of ways, quite a few ways actually. But to keep it simple, essentially there's nerve flow coming through the nerve, and when the joints protecting them are misaligned, they can interfere with the communication of the information from your brain to your body. And so what we do is remove that impingement and then allow the nerve flow to flow as it's meant to be. And then, in a lot of cases, the body's just able to freely heal itself. So basically, your body's going to do all the work, and I'm just going to help facilitate that.
Okay.
And that's pretty much the basics of it. So I have a couple other things to show you. I know you also had some pain into your shoulder, and so right here on the same areas that we found subluxations, we also, this is a sclerogenic pain, so it's essentially a soft tissue referral into these patterns, which is like pretty much right where, right into the scap and stuff. So it's kind of interesting because even though the issue's here, it's creating symptoms into there.
Yeah.
And so
I have noticed that, like, on my low, like right here on my back, right behind my shoulder and stuff. So
exactly. So that kind of explains that. So it's kind of cool when it all lines up. Like definitely in the right place. You know,
for sure.
And I think we can definitely help you. So going forward, so today we're going to give you your first adjustment.
Okay.
I know you were a little unsure as to why we didn't do it the first day, but we wanted to go through all those findings and make sure we had it down, and it gave me a chance to look at your x-rays, which were obviously, very informative as to what your issue was. I had a pretty good idea from just the history and stuff, but just wanted to be sure because we don't want to make anything worse, and we want to make sure you're feeling good. And gives us time to make sure we're doing our jobs right. So want to make sure you're good, well taken care of. So we're going to go ahead and adjust you today.
Okay.
And then we're going to set up basically a treatment plan. So you can book a few appointments ahead if you would like, or you can kind of book it as you go. For your case, I think it would be really good to start off seeing you 3 times a week for, I'm thinking probably 3 or 4 weeks. And then at that point, we're going to go through your how you're feeling and what progress we've made, and then we'll change it from there. Because I want to try and trail you off to not having to come in quite as often, but I want to make sure when we first start off that we're really, staying on top of it, because especially in the beginning, it's really easy for things to come back out again, and all sorts of habits like your posture and stuff, as we're working on them, we'll start getting better and better results. But I want to make sure we're keeping you subluxation free really well for those first few weeks, which will then allow us to trail off better in the future.
Okay.
And then we'll probably go to maybe like a twice a week or even maybe once a week, depending on how things go.
All right.
And then I'm also going to be giving you some exercises, and as well as some postural exercises in there. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate those for you later, and make sure I'll give you a handout as well.
Okay.
Make sure it'll be simple, as long as you remember to do them. And I definitely would recommend doing them for sure. I'll check in with you every now and then.
Okay.
And some of them will probably increase how often or how many reps you do of them, periodically as we continue. It's like training a muscle or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they are muscles, so we can actually train your body to keep the good posture more naturally without having to think about it, which is our goal. So you can go ahead and book your appointments with the front desk. If that's easy for you, you can call. And we're open all day long, so if you prefer the evenings or prefer the mornings, either one, whichever. And in terms of the finances of this, since it is a bit of an undertaking to go into the treatment plan like this, we do it by a visit basis, and it's just a flat fee, and I can go through those with you if you would like, or you can always ask our front desk. They're happy to help anytime you need.
Okay, great.
Awesome. So let's go get you adjusted. Huh?
Awesome. Sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Max.